All right, Locomotion, Episode 9, Oil Oasis. All right, Episode 9. Let's change my face to something easier to look at. And we're going to change my colors so you can see exactly where all my infrastructure is against the map. And we are to deliver 50,000 tons of oil by the end of 1939. So I have 10 years. So let's max out my loan and start looking. So we got to move oil. That's the whole primary purpose of this episode, is basically to move oil. So we're just taking a look at the overview map first to see where the oil wells are and where the oil refineries are. So we're just kind of doing some preliminary scouting around. Also, it helps to actually not start anything right away. Sometimes you're going to see new oil wells pop up within the first year. So if you're having trouble finding oil wells to connect to refineries, just wait a year and you'll see new oil wells pop up. And again, if you notice that the volume is a little bit low, I apologize for that. I think my capture device had the audio settings a little bit lower than I normally would like. So anyway, so what I'm doing here, I'm making a rather large train platform at this oil refinery and giving myself enough room for the necessary crossovers. Or switches, however you want to put it. So right now I'm just kind of surveying the line so I can figure out exactly where my trains are, or my railway tracks are to be placed, making sure that everything is relatively in a straight line. I'm also checking the elevation of the terrain here as well to make sure that I don't have to go, I don't have to change the elevation of the tracks. If I can keep things as level as possible, that will make turnaround a lot quicker for the trains rather than having to fight going uphill to the refinery. But in some cases, there's just no getting around the fact that you're going to have some changes in elevation in the track. Try and keep those to a minimum. Also, the bridge type that I'm building is actually the cheapest. I know you can build more expensive bridges which will permit faster trains to use those lines, except the problem with that is that we're in 1930 and the trains that are being offered around this time won't make best use of those particular bridge designs. So I typically will just go with the standard bridge at this stage of the game. As you get on to closer to like 1970s, 1980s, 1990s, it's probably more beneficial to use the more expensive types of bridges. That way the trains are not slowed down by the bridge type. So I'm just connecting the first circuit here. These platforms are 12 long. not only can you have a station that is doubled up beside each other, but you can also add circuits to stations one below each other, one beneath one another, and those will count as one single station rather than two stations. Okay, now I see what I'm doing here. It's been a while since I watched this, so what I'm doing, I'm actually going to collect oil from this particular oil field, and rather than having it go to the refinery, I'm just going to have it operate at a loss, where it is basically going to take oil from this oil field and it's going to dump it into this platform, and then from there I'm going to have a whole series of trains to move this oil to the refinery. So what we're doing, we're building another train, and we're going to give it the orders that anything with a full load of oil will end up going to this particular oil refinery. So that middle oil well is not only producing oil, but it's also receiving oil from a nearby oil well. And like I said, that that other circuit where it's coming into the station, it's not going to make any money. It's basically, all it's doing is it's being paid to move oil from the source to a nearby platform. And you have to give it specific orders to actually unload the oil at that particular platform. And that's what we're doing. Or maybe that's what we're going to do. I kind of forget what the orders are, but that's the idea. So as you can see, it's gotten pretty expensive. I'm down to $7,300. I forget what my original loan was. I think it was probably $150,000. So I don't have a lot of money, but I do have a little bit of money left over to do some terraforming to basically flatten out this particular circuit. And eventually I'll come back to the circuit where that train is currently, and we'll just flatten that out, and we'll remove all the bridges, and we'll make things actually somewhat level. So you can see how that secondary train is coming in, and it's just basically dumping its load of oil into that platform. And I'm broke. So let's see if we can borrow a little bit more money. Doesn't look like it. Yeah, I'm broke. So we're just going to fast forward a little bit here. There's probably going to be a big glut of oil that's being left on the platform until I get this secondary circuit. Yeah, 366 tons, 500 tons of oil. So as you can see, if I don't start moving on creating a secondary circuit for this platform, I'm going to be broke really soon. So I'm going to borrow a little bit of money as well to try and finish this up. It doesn't help that I'm building, bridges to get to this oil field, but what are you going to do? I kind of want to keep things as level as possible. So you can see how my approval rating over at the oil field here is in terrible shape because I'm not able to move oil as much as I'd like, versus this secondary oil field. My approval rating is a little bit higher because I am moving oil from that oil field. I just can't get it off this platform yet, so I'm working on it. So vertically stacking the platforms is really handy if you don't have a lot of room. I think the widest platform that you can have is 6 or 8 wide. I forget what it is. But you can also double that up by either building a platform beneath the existing platform or above it. So here I'm just going to wait to see if I can get some... What I'm doing here is I'm going to take that first train. I kind of need the money right away. So I'm going to take the first train and I'm going to reroute it and actually have it turn a profit so I can get this oil away from this middle oil field. Eventually I'll create a secondary train that will again take oil from the second oil field and dump it into this middle platform. And once we start doing that, then we're going to really start making some money. Especially once I start putting more than a single train on a single line. I'm going to create crossovers or switches, and we're going to really increase the number of trains that is going to be going to the oil refinery. Again, I'm just kind of waiting this out to get some more money. There's no sense in having the most fastest, most powerful train going from the second oil field to the first oil field. It doesn't make much sense to do so. All it's doing is moving material from one place to another, and it's relatively short. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to actually buy another train that's going to be a little bit quicker to move stuff to the oil refinery. So I'm just double checking the orders. Everything seems to be working out all right. Let's fast forward again. The nice thing about this game is that it'll keep the fast forward on until you actually start constructing stuff, which is nice. You don't automatically have to remember to slow it down while you're building. Things can get out of control when you're in the fast forward mode. So we're just adding a few more tankers to the train 3. So now it's the same length as train 1 and train 2. And we'll just fast forward again just to get some more money in the bank. So we're going to create our crossovers or our switches to isolate the incoming and outgoing lines. And we'll do the same at the refinery. Looks like we're going to have a little bit of a conflict here. That's alright, it'll self-correct. It'll give me a chance to do the next set of crossovers at the refinery. You can see how the one train is stopped because the other train is basically heading right for it. But it's stopped, and this other train's going to stop in front of it as well because of that signal. It'll self-correct. Here we go. Now we'll just add a couple intermediary signals, and what I'm doing here, I'm literally counting 12 long, and on the 13th, that's where I'll put the signal. It's a little OCD, I know. It's probably not really necessary, but I don't know. It's one of my foibles is I'm a little OCD when it comes to this type of stuff. So you can see how the first two trains are making a monthly profit and the third train is not making any money whatsoever. Again, it's just moving material from A to B, and he's not making any money doing so because he's not taking it to the refinery. But that's fine because these other trains are taking that material to the refinery and are making a profit. So much so that, you know, we're adding a fourth train. So we're going to copy these orders and we're going to send it on its way. So while I have a little bit of money, I'm going to just flatten this land and get rid of this hump on this particular circuit. So you can see how my approval rating is a lot better now. It's in the green. I am moving material at a pretty consistent rate. And because I'm doing that, I'm turning a profit as well. And we might as well double up on the platform at the oil refinery so we have enough room to bring in more oil. Again, the whole point of the challenge is to bring 50,000 tons worth of oil from the oil wells to a refinery. So that's what we're working on. I'm not so much concerned about moving passengers around or other materials around. The whole point of this is to move the oil from one point to another. I'm not exactly sure why I have a double crossover here. Strange. There, that's better. Now we'll get rid of these signals because they're too close to the first set at the station. When they're that close, the trains will start getting confused, especially when the when the trains themselves are bridging over a set of signals. So I know that these trains are about 12 tiles long. That's why I like to have my signals to be about at least 13 tiles separated. So. So we're just keeping an eye on the oil field, seeing what kind of tonnage is always waiting to be picked up and moved to the oil refinery. Seems like we'll probably use another train, maybe two. So we're going to copy the same orders. Even though these are on a separate circuit, you can basically copy the same orders because the two from the originating station and the end station are basically the same. So the approval rating is pretty bad here, and what the problem is that I didn't give it specific orders to actually wait for a full load of oil before progressing to the other station. So what it's basically doing is that it's going to this particular oil field and it was just stopping and going. It wasn't waiting for a full load, and that's why the approval rating kind of stank. So by giving it the corrected order, it's going to wait for a full load, and then it's going to dump itself over at this particular oil field. At this oil field. Alright, so at this point, we just need to wait. I wonder how we're doing. 17% progress. And it's been 4 years, so we're not doing great. And you can see how there's a competitor that has come up. A CPU has decided to start drawing oil from a nearby oil well and basically put pressure on you to actually, well, you're not going to be able to pull oil as effectively as you would like if you were to tap this as maybe a third circuit, because there's already a competitor in your way. But what you can do is, you may not be able to take all the oil and deliver it, but you can deliver it more efficiently, and the game sort of rewards you from that. Whereas the more efficient you are from moving material around, the more material you'll be given versus your competitors. If your competitor is really inefficient in moving material around, then the computer will automatically start giving you more material because that other competitor is so inefficient, almost penalizing the CPU player for sucking so bad. So as long as you're making, really efficient routes and constructing efficient circuits, then you should be able to pull oil away. Probably not as much as you could if you were the sole exporter from that particular oil well. But again, the whole point of this challenge is to get up to 50,000 tons. And you're not going to be able to do it just by tapping in a couple of oil wells, such as I did previously. So now that I've got a steady income coming in from the first circuits that I've built, that allows me to construct even more platforms around this one oil refinery, so it can actually receive oil from other oil wells in the area. I suppose I could have bridged over this or ramped it up and then ramped back down over this hill, but because I got so much money coming in, and I would have eventually flattened everything out, I'll just cut it out right now. One thing about this game is how quickly time flies in the real world. You can, I think this particular episode is about an hour long, and I can guarantee you when you're playing it, it probably only feels like maybe, I don't know, 20 minutes. Because there's lots of things to manage, lots of things to build, and next thing you know, the hour's already gone. Again, this is my OCD creeping in. Completely not necessary to be counting, but I am. It's ridiculous, but I am. Alright, so we're almost done. Time to put some trains here. And because we're going a little bit further distance, might as well get the fastest and most capable train that we can be offered. So again, because it's 1934, we're not going to get the fastest trains out there, but we'll make it work. So we're going to give it the right orders, make sure it's getting a full load of oil, and it's going to empty it at the refinery. And then we're just basically going to send it on its way. We'll probably put another 3 trains on this circuit as soon as I can afford it. We're just seeing what the status is. making sure not too much oil is waiting around on the platform for too long. If we start getting more oil than I'd like to have waiting on the platform, I'll just add a couple more trains to these first 2 circuits. That way we can keep the platform free and clear as much as possible. Alright, now that's taken care of. We can go back to this 3rd circuit, see how we're doing. So far, so good. 24%. So we're getting there. But at this rate, we're going to fail the challenge, so we're going to have to keep moving more oil. We're about halfway through 10 years, and we only have completed 24% of the challenge. So we're going to have to really start moving. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find additional sources of oil to be delivered and dumped at this particular platform. Just scouting around for another set of oil fields that maybe we can tie into. Looks like the status is good. I don't have a lot of things that are waiting. There are goods waiting at the oil refinery to be picked up, but again, because this is not a goods related challenge, I'm just going to let those basically die on the vine at the platform. I don't really care that they're not being delivered. My whole point here is to move oil and not so much move everything that's in the game. Alright. That pretty much takes care of that. So what that's going to do is it's going to pull oil and basically dump it at this particular platform to be later hauled to the oil refinery. And by stacking the platforms, your incoming oil or incoming trains with oil, they're not going to be affected by the trains above them. They don't have to wait. That's why stacking them is probably a pretty efficient way when you're having to deal with multiple trains. So what I'm doing here, I'm getting rid of some of these old trains and replacing them with the newest, most powerful, and probably the fastest as well. And eventually my old trains are going to break down an awful lot, so it doesn't make much sense to keep them around. So whenever I can afford it, I'll replace the older trains with the newest offerings. So we're just doing a little bit of train maintenance here. Again, this is one of the sad things about this particular game is that as you start grinding on, you can have 50 trains and you're going to spend the majority of your time basically replacing them because they're constantly breaking down. But at least you don't have to reorder them. They'll keep the same orders, so you're just basically replacing the locomotive. So up to 34%. I got 5 years left. So far we're doing all right. Just not quite as good as I would hope at this point. So let's see if there's any other oil fields around here that maybe we can tie into. You notice that I paused the game at this point. I'm 5 years out, or maybe 4 years out from completing this game, and there's no sense in wasting game time while I'm just basically surveying around. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to connect to a nearby oil field that is primarily being serviced by one of the CPU characters, and I'm going to start drawing oil away from him. And I'm going to basically dump it in a nearby platform, and then those trains will then dump it to the refinery. So I'm not going to gain a heck of a lot of oil by doing this, but seeing that this particular oil field is so close, I might as well get something out of this, rather than having the competitor draw all this oil away. And because it's so close, there's no sense in getting the best train. It's just basically hauling material from A to B. And the distance isn't very great either, where speed is going to make a big difference. So we're going to give it some orders. And we're going to force it to unload at Sinking Bed Forest. Is that how that's said? Might be. And you can see how production is up at Sinking Bed oil fields. That's good. That's only going to help me. especially when I start peeling oil away from the competitor. So you can see how there's so much oil that's waiting at sink and bed for us, so we might as well add a couple more trains just to better manage all this oil that's being stockpiled at that particular platform, so we can dump it over to the oil refinery as quickly as possible. At some point, though, you can only add so many trains to a circuit. The bottlenecks will start to occur at the platforms where one train is waiting for another. One train is waiting to leave while the other trains are coming in. So when that starts being an issue, then you have to double up on the platform to split the trains that are coming in, so you actually have more of an opportunity for more trains to come in while other trains are leaving. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm just doing some light terraforming to add another circuit over to this refinery. I must say, I don't know how YouTubers can carry on a narrative or a conversation for an extended amount of time during these Let's Plays. It's kind of like commenting on someone, I don't know, mowing the lawn. It's like, yes, I'm building, that's what I'm doing. And yes, I'm kind of doing some train management, but quite frankly, I really don't know how people can drone on and on and on about what it is that they're doing in a particular game, especially when it's pretty boring sometimes. So I'm finding myself at a little bit of a loss of words when it comes to this game, because there's really not much to talk about. Other than what I'm doing here is I am just doing a little bit of track management. I'm moving one trains from one circuit to another, just so that everything kind of lines up on the platforms. And it looks like all these trains have been moved over to the other circuit, which provides me a chance to finish up this secondary circuit to the oil refinery. I think this game is probably is better experienced playing live rather than watching myself play it and then basically drone on about the minutia of how to deal with trains and platforms and stack platforms and crossovers. There's really nothing new to talk about other than actually just completing the challenge. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'm just adding another circuit to the oil refinery. And that will allow me to basically double up the amount of trains that are coming in and out of this refinery. It's 1937, it's getting close to 1939. So we might as well outfit the second circuit with some trains with the same orders. So that first circuit probably had 4 trains on it, and now by doubling up on the platforms, now we can have up to 8. It's a little bit more efficient, especially with the acceleration of these trains. They're really not very fast to get up to speed. So it's really advantageous to have as many trains as possible coming in and out of platform station. And there is a lot of oil here that's basically waiting around doing nothing. So let's see if we can do something about this. The easiest thing to do here is to add another train to basically take oil from that station and move it over to sink and bed forest, so it can be later distributed to the oil refinery, rather than just basically having it wait on the platform. I have forgotten to actually make that platform over there. I'm too busy paying off my loan for me to realize that that train that I just put in there is basically doing nothing at all. I wonder if I'll notice. Nope, I'm an idiot. Didn't pick it up at all. Oh, okay, so here we've got a problem, whereas the signals are too close together. You can see how one train is kind of caught between signals. So what we need to do is we need to remove some of these signals so that this doesn't happen. And it's always good to take a look at your design after it's done and let it run through a couple cycles to see where the problems are. And this is a good example of a train. Oh, here we also have a reverse signal. We have a signal going in the wrong direction, so we had to do some corrections here. But now that we've done that, everything seems to be working out all right. Did I notice? Did I notice? Did I notice? Yes, I finally noticed. Oh look, I forgot to put in the platform. Done. That will make this work a whole lot better. So it looks like the 3/4 of the way done. The status looks good for all the oil. I don't see a lot of oil that's waiting around to be picked up and delivered, which is good. I got 1 year and 9 months to go. Just double checking, making sure everything is working all right, making sure all the statuses are in the green. Everything looks pretty good. But this is getting a little close for comfort, so I've paid off all my loans. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another station. Almost as an insurance policy, to make sure I get to the 50,000. Plus it gives me something to do while I'm waiting. Just checking the elevation, seeing how much land I have to move up or down in order to meet the same elevation at the oil refinery. Again, my OCD is getting the better of me on this one. I'm literally counting 13 tiles and putting the signals on the 13th tile. Looks like I just have a little bit more than a year to finish up this challenge. As you can see, I've got more than enough money. Right now, it's time. I'm up against the clock. So hopefully by adding this little bit of extra oil being brought into the oil refinery, that's going to get me to a point where I've completed this challenge. Might as well finish off paying off my loan. Nothing seems to be broken down. Everything seems to be working all right. Ooh, this is gonna be close. Should be able to do it though. Oh yeah, no problem. Anyway, so that's how you do episode 6. It's all about moving oil. Looks like we're almost done. We'll have about 10 or 9 months left to spare, which is good. Done. Yay!